But
like Grand Theft Auto.
yeah, they're simulated violence.
It's a criminal simulator, a murder simulator.
Yeah, Evan.
Playing violent video games seems to temporarily increase aggressive behaviors, thoughts, and feelings, as well as desensitize people to violence and decrease empathy.
The idea that the longer you hold the button down, the more brutal the kill will be, and you know that you're standing behind someone waiting to end their life, and you're deliberately making the decision to kill them in an even more gruesome way.
That's what we have to be concerned about, because you're exposing kids to potentially very inappropriate material and also very aggressive material.
Oh boy. So today I'm going to be talking with you guys about something a little controversial, as you guys can probably see from the title, and that's violence in video games, and why I think everyone's blowing it not only a little out of proportion, but also how it can be a good thing overall. And I know what you guys are thinking, screw this guy, how is violence a good thing, thumbs down. But if you guys just want to wait around for a little bit, I'm going to try and explain why I think not only are video games maybe in some cases causing violence, but why that's actually overall maybe a good thing. And don't worry, I'm not advocating violence, and I don't think violence itself is a good thing, but just stick around and I'll explain to you why all these people saying video games can't cause violence may be doing more harm than good. Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Frank Garcia, and this is Frankly Gaming. Let's talk. So before we jump into how I could possibly think video games causing violence could be a net positive, let's talk a little bit about whether or not video games actually cause violence. Because all of the studies right now aren't very conclusive, and we do need to at least identify that we don't really know overall. So first up, I have a study coming from Jay Hull, who's actually the Dartmouth professor of psychology and brain sciences, so he's a pretty reputable source, and he has quite a bit to say about the topic. The study researched over 17,000 adolescents from age 9 to 19, and found that, yes, violent video games do actually have an effect on making especially younger children more violent. Hull noted that increased playtimes also resulted in more risky behavior, including reckless driving, binge drinking, smoking, and unsafe sex. And speaking from personal experience, I know that if I'm listening to a banger in my car, I'm definitely going to be driving faster, more reckless, and just thinking I'm more of a badass. So that's a good example of how, at least music itself could affect someone. On top of this, another study by Weinstein and Pryblatsky, yikes, also found that there at least is a small correlation between video game playtime, especially in adolescence, and violent tendencies. It's important to remember as well, though, that there have been a multitude of studies that have found the exact opposite, with no link between playing video games and violent tendencies. But I think there's a huge problem in that it depends very much on the game people are playing and the type of person playing it, and it's hard to say whether or not violent people are drawn to violent video games, or if violent video games cause people to become more violent. But what it does seem like from most of the studies I've looked at is that there's at least some small sort of effect, regardless of what side you're on. So now that we got that out of the way, while we can say it's hard to say exactly how video games can affect violence and people in general, we can at least probably agree on that it has some sort of effect, and it looks like maybe violence could be one of those options. But now for the real question I bet all of you are asking, and that's, how the hell do I think that's a good thing? And well guys, the answer to that is pretty simple, and that's, if video games are art just as much as movies and books and music, well, then that's just one of the necessary evils of the medium. Because while obviously we would never want people to actually commit violence or have violent tendencies because of, whether it's reading a book or playing a video game, sometimes good art has to be able to do things like that to even be considered good. Think back to the last song that really made you feel sad or very happy, and how much even just a 2-minute song could change your mood and change your entire thought process. Think about the last movie that you watched that you came out of and just really, really enjoyed, how much that could change your day and maybe even change the way you think. One of the greatest parts about art is how much it can mold our malleable brains and change the way we are, not only in the moment, but maybe long term as well. And yes, that means sometimes art has the potential to negatively affect us, like making us, be more prone to violence or thinking about depression or things like that. But that's what makes art art. It gives the user the freedom to feel real emotion and change their thoughts, and that's what makes it so great. And as much as people like to argue that books and movies and video games and music can't affect people in a negative way and cause bad emotions, it's that exact property of art that makes it so special. The fact that it can just make these drastic changes in perceptions and things like that for human beings. It's important for art to be able to do that because that's, at the end of the day, what makes it art. If art can make us better people, then it sure as hell can also make us worse people. But that's a good thing, because I think it's better that we have the freedom to interpret these artistic pieces and change ourselves because of it, rather than just all kind of come together and say, no, these things of art like video games can't affect us and can't make us violent. I think it's better that we realize that, hey, maybe they can affect us in certain ways, just like other mediums like movies and books. And that, hey, that's okay and it can be bad sometimes, but that we should instead focus on the individuals and make sure they're responsible enough to be consuming the art and, ready to really let it change them for the better, not for the worse. Too many people today are too scared to admit that these things they love, like all the video games they play, can affect people in such a negative way. But we need to come together and admit to ourselves that, yeah, sometimes maybe shooting people relentlessly over and over can have a, while very slight effect on us, still an effect. And that's okay though. That's what makes us human. The ability to experience these things and grow as people as we do it. I remember reading Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics in college, and it just had such a profound effect on me. I remember reading about how living in the means instead of the excesses could lead to a more virtuous and happy life, and how in certain situations, maybe stopping a mugger isn't the courageous thing to do, and instead calling the cops could be. While in other situations, if they're smaller than you and you can take them, get them, baby! Woo! But for real though, guys, this just goes to show how much real art can change you. A good book like Nicomachean Ethics can quite literally change how you perceive the world, and not only your perceptions, but how you act in the world as well. It did for me at least. And to think that video games can't have the same sort of effect that a good book like from Aristotle could as well, kind of just degrades them to something lesser. When I think at the end of the day, video games can be just as much art and just as impactful as all of these other mediums. And to deny that video games can cause violence or kind of change us as people would also be to deny that they're as much art as everything else. And it's scary to think about. The fact that not only the video games you're playing, but really all of this stuff that you're consuming every day, whether it be social media or books or things like that, can have a drastic and meaningful effect on you. But I think that's also what makes these things art and what makes them so great. And I think we as a gaming community need to come together and say, hey, you know what? Maybe there are some downsides. Maybe some games do cause a little violence, especially in a younger audience who maybe isn't mature enough for some of what they're seeing yet. But at the end of the day, isn't it better that we're able to experience these things and as an individual overcome them and learn from them than just kind of giving up and assuming they don't have an effect on us at all? And while it's hard to say whether or not video games are actually causing things like mass shootings or other catastrophic events, that's pretty hard to say. I think it is pretty, straightforward to say that they can at least have a little bit of an effect on us and maybe turn us slightly more towards violence. But that's okay. And it's not only okay, it's good. Because that's part of what being human and consuming art is. Changing and overcoming those bad things and trying to learn from the good. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this week's video. I release new ones every Sunday. And if you guys do want to talk about the concepts in this video or any of my others, feel free to check me out on my Twitch stream, as I stream almost every day of the week and would love to talk to you guys about this live while I'm playing, whatever game of the week it is. Hopefully you guys at least see my side of the argument a little more now, and I'd love to hear your guys' side as well down in the comments or live while I'm on Twitch. But at the end of the day, I think it would be great for us as a gaming community to come together and realize that these games we're playing every day are art and can affect us, but that's okay. And instead of acting like these things can never really turn us towards violence or cause bad things to happen in real life, we should instead see these amazing games for what they are, art. And because of that, it can have a profound and astounding effect on who we are as people. And that's what makes games so great. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next week.